my studies at UNSW at the end of 2019. So a bit of a crossover there. In terms of what I've been doing to keep myself busy, that's a good question, because everything I do was like cancelled. Basketball was cancelled. Any other team sports I played in were cancelled. So I would probably say playing a lot of games and watching a lot of anime. Just, yeah, keep myself sane. I don't know if that keeps me sane, but yeah, that's what I did.
Whatever works. So thanks for that quick introduction and I guess the answer to the question. So right now I'm just gonna post the attendance form into the chat. Oh, that's posted by Ruler. And then, so just a quick reminder, if you guys have any questions during the workshop, feel free to pop it in the chat. And without further ado, I will pass it on to you, Luka. So I'll stop sharing screen and I'll let you share. So there we go.
Cool. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, yeah, thanks everybody for coming. I'm not sure how many of you there are, but for whoever is here, I'm glad you can see some value in this presentation, hopefully. So I'll kick right into it. So I will say that, yeah, I haven't pressure tested this presentation, so let's see how long we go for. Hopefully I'm on time, but we might need to speed some things in some certain places, but yeah, we'll see how we go. Cool. So let's, hopefully this works. Sweet. How do I minimize all the participants up the top? All right, cool. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my career journey to start off with. So in 2015, I started studying at UNSW, and around the same time, or a few months after, in the middle of 2015, I started working at Apple in the retail store. So originally I was a technical specialist for the first year or so, and then after the first year I sort of moved into a genius role, and several people in this call might be familiar with the geniuses. They repair phones and computers, and obviously support people in the genius bar with all their problems. So I did that for the better part of about 2 years, and then towards the tail end of 2017 and my time at Apple, I sort of moved into a few different roles. I did some time as a business expert, which some of you may know as like an account manager in other businesses. Apple obviously has to give those roles fancy names. And then I also did product validation testing, which is sort of the process of testing some of the retail tools that are going to be used, tools that are going to be used for retail employees that are coming up in the future. So I can't use my button. Oh, also, sorry, I will say one more thing. Sometimes you might hear my dog bark throughout the thing. He likes to participate in meetings, so he's got very important things to say. So if he barks, I'll try not to get flustered and lose my train of thought. But yeah, early 2018, I moved into a role at Quantium, and they were, quite flexible actually in allowing me to continue my studies at UNSW full time while pursuing a role at Quantium. And I didn't touch on it before, but I studied a Bachelor of Science and majored in psychology, and studied a Bachelor of Arts majoring in criminology and international business. Weird combination of stuff. The reason I did criminology was when I first started, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and it just happened to work best for my timetable. I think I managed to be at uni like 3 days or something, and I was like, yeah, cool, that's my major. And then I got too far into it, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna have criminology as a major. Definitely don't use it at all in my day-to-day anymore. So yeah, it's not really related to anything that I do at Quantium, but when I first started, I did sort of a customer experience role. So what that really was helping our customers, with any problems they have with our products. They are quite complex products that are built on, very complicated data sets, and they can do all sorts of things with data. And so a lot of the times it was around resolving data issues or how to do certain things in the products. And then on top of that, I also did a few things around, product knowledge, content, and then the onboarding experience for new customers and clients as well. And sort of how I fell into product management is a bit of an interesting story. So when I was working at Apple, I found that I was really passionate about the customer experience and supporting customers and, helping them find a solution to their problems. And I had no idea what product management was when I was at Apple. So it wasn't something like, oh, I knew I wanted to be a product manager. It was more just that when I went into Quantium and into a product business, I started to find out that some of those passions that I developed for at Apple were applicable in this new type of role. And then I really worked hard at, my job as a customer experience specialist to get, I guess, maybe the clout, I guess you could say, as the cool kids would say these days, to sort of move into that new role as a product manager. And I was luckily given that opportunity about July of 2019. So I've been doing it for just about a year now. Cool. I keep hitting my arrow key, but that doesn't work for some reason. So what is product management? Some of you might be asking. And what I want to do before I tell you is want to hear what you guys think. So for those of you that aren't shy to talk in the chat, if you want to unmute yourself and let me know what you think product management is, and we'll see if someone can nail it. And I won't continue until someone tells me something. So managing the end-to-end experience of a product, person who works on product development, looks for a problem in the market, which if solved correctly with a product can create a business upside. Yep, all of those things are definitely true. So I think that's probably a good sort of, so what do we have here? Intersection of UX team, platform and analyst teams, and get the product going. Try to work together with a client to come up with a product. So a lot of these things are actually a pretty good sort of description of some of the things that you sort of might do as a product manager. So a lot of you have maybe seen that Venn diagram where product management sort of sits in between UX, business, and technology. So I sort of see this one from, I think it's Srinath, saying around the intersection of those teams. So CEO of the product is definitely another term that's been thrown around for a few years now. So what I will show you is a really nice snippet that I found of what I think accurately reflects what product management is. And this is a quote from Sharif Mansour, who's been a product manager for, I think, over 10 or 11 years at Atlassian. So he's quite a distinguished product manager, and I think this encompasses it quite well. So a product manager is the person who identifies the customer need and the larger business objectives that a product or feature will fulfill, and articulates what success looks like for a product and rallies a team to turn that vision into a reality. So that's a really nice embodiment of showing that the product manager is really responsible for understanding what your customer needs are, and then sort of aligning that with the business that you work for and the business's objectives. And then what you want to do is obviously have a great return on investment for your business, but then also consider the user experience required. And then once you take those two things together, you work with the UX team, your engineers, your analysts to make that sort of a reality. So obviously I've only been a product manager for about a year, and rather than butchering sort of what Sharif's thoughts on this are, I thought I'd share with you what he actually has to say. This is only a quick 5-minute video, but he's going to do an infinitely better job of explaining what product managers do than I will. But I will touch on obviously some of this later throughout the presentation as well. So I have pressed to share my computer sound, so please let me know if there's any issues, but it should work.
If you ask someone who worked on a product team about what does a product manager do, I'm pretty sure you're going to get a whole lot of different answers. It's 2019 and it is pretty amazing that you can still go to conferences or read blogs that still talk about what is a product manager. And over the last 10 years, there has been an explosion of product management tooling, jobs, and training just in that discipline. Hi, I'm Sharif Mansour. I'm an accidental product manager. I fell into product management from an engineering role. And over the last 10 years, I've seen Atlassian's product management team go from 10 to over 140 product managers. And I get to speak to a lot of our customers, who many of which are product managers as well. And I talk to them about how they do product management. And the truth is, there is no clear answer. Defining the role of product management is really complex, and there are 3 reasons for this. First is product management has had a long history. In 2012, Ben Horowitz defined the role of a product manager as the CEO of a product. And that was pretty standard for many years. And what he was getting at was the responsibilities of a product manager, everything from motivating the team, defining the problem, and defining what success looks like. Since then, the product manager as a CEO analogy has been critiqued. As a simple example, a product manager doesn't really have any reports, so often they have to influence without any authority. I think both these views highlight different aspects of product management. The CEO view highlights the areas of responsibility, whereas the alternate view highlights the method by which a product manager can go through to achieve an outcome. So the second reason defining product management is difficult is because of team culture. Now, if we define team culture as how teams get work done, we all know this can look very different between team and change radically depending on the size of the organization. As a simple example, in a small organization, you'll see a product manager do whatever they need to do to get the job done, everything from research to analytics. But as an organization grows, you'll see them hire a dedicated team to do something like research. Now, on those medium to large organizations, a large part of the product management role is navigating that organizational landscape to get an outcome. And they're using their influence skills to drive prioritization, balance business and customer needs, and achieve an outcome that builds a great product. Now, the third area of confusion is around responsibilities. Now, one topic that always comes up is this contrast between what a product manager does and what a product owner does. Now, product managers in the traditional sense are responsible for defining the mission, the vision, the high-level problems, and what does success look like. Now, in contrast, a product owner's responsibility is taking that high-level mission and vision and breaking it down into day-to-day activities that the team can run with, whether it be defining requirements, breaking them down into stories, or just managing the day-to-day backlog. So what we're seeing in the industry is that product ownership is actually less of a role, more of a responsibility. And product managers that do really well at scaling themselves empower their team members to wear that product owner hat. So another area that might confuse the responsibilities of product management is this famous Venn diagram Martin Ericsson created a few years ago. He talked about the intersection of user experience, technology, and business. And he said that product management sits right here in this intersection. So what was he talking about? A lot of people have interpreted this diagram as a project management function, someone who works between 3 departments and making sure that all their needs are met. But in reality, Martin was actually talking about one of the activities that product managers need to do every day, a really hard one, and that's making great trade-off decisions. It's about balancing the needs of user experience, making sure that we build something that's feasible, and at the same time building a business need. And the hard part, doing all of this while solving a great customer problem. So a product manager is responsible for a product and its success. Now, first, we talked about how this can mean they're taking on CEO-like responsibilities, but quite often they're doing it in a non-CEO-like way, such as influencing without any authority. So in small organizations, you'll expect product managers to take on a wide range of responsibilities. But as teams and organizations continue to grow, you'll find product managers' responsibilities shift to be more focused on what's essential to build an amazing product. And great product managers do this by giving the teams context, empowering many individuals in a team to take on product owner-like responsibilities. And finally, product managers need to be amazing at making trade-off decisions between business needs, user experience, and engineering whilst making their customer happy. Now, I know you probably came here looking for a single definition of what a product manager does. Now, the irony here, like many things in product management, is that there is no single right answer. It's not black and white, but rather many shades of gray.
Awesome. So hopefully everybody managed to hear that and there wasn't any issues with that, but hopefully that gave you a really good overview of what sort of product management is, or what product managers do rather, and sort of why it's difficult to really describe what it is, because depending on what business you're at, it can be so vastly different, because you might wear a lot of different hats, work with a lot of different people, and just do quite different work. So, oh my God. Okay, here we go. So where do product managers come from? So this is another sort of thing that if we were in person, I managed to, come and, present in front of you, in a room somewhere, I'd probably ask some of you to put your hands up. But since we can't do that, what I want to say is that some of you might be studying computer science or engineering. Some of you might be studying commerce, and you could be majoring in a variety of different things studying commerce. Perhaps some of you study science like myself. And some of you might even be studying arts and social sciences, but perhaps interested in product management. I know I didn't put law in here. Maybe some of you are studying that too, maybe in combination with some of these different things. So no matter what you're studying, you may be interested in product management. Now, what I want to ask you before I move on to sort of talking a little bit further about this, if I could get a quick thought from some of you on who do you think would be the best product manager? So which student of these faculties do you think would be most successful in a product management position? Feel free to write in chat, or just even call out if you can unmute yourself.
Most of them from computer science and engineering.
Yeah, so we've got, so from computer science and engineering, we've got people from arts and social sciences. Jared said anybody, they can take different business perspectives, and possessing a balance of both the technical side and big picture. Yeah, so I think a few of you have raised a few different things, and definitely shout out to Jared, who says anybody, and I would agree with Jared. Anybody can definitely be a product owner or a product manager, and that's sort of the beauty of product management. So no matter where you come from, no matter what your background is or what you studied, you can be a successful product manager. And sort of that's what I want anybody studying anything to get out of sort of this section here, is that formal education in product management is not something that you can really do. I can't give you a university degree that says Bachelor of Product Management. There are places that are offering graduate diplomas in product management, and you might find courses from General Assembly and stuff like that that are offering these product management courses. But I wouldn't really say that those are really formal sort of processes of education where they teach you some things that you really need to know to be successful at what you do. What they teach you is some skills and tools and knowledge that you need to be a successful product manager, but they obviously can't, package that into a degree for you. It's not like, you need to, like if you're going to be a lawyer, like you can't just, learn the skills of being a lawyer. Like there's prerequisites that doesn't exist for product management. But what I want to touch on is that depending on what you study, it helps with being a domain expert or a subject matter expert in certain areas. So for example, certain product managers can be very technical. There might be a requirement from a business that you go in the future that the product manager needs to be someone that is highly technical, because they need to understand, the real nitty-gritty of what they're developing, because it's either some sort of API that needs to integrate with something, or it's some sort of back-end technical infrastructure that needs a very technical product manager to actually assist with helping engineers decide on development options and whatnot. But on the same token, you might have a business that's looking for a product manager that really understands sort of customer retention and growth and product marketing, and that's as important of a use case as the other. It just depends on what you need. And same with science. Like you can come from a psychology background like myself, or perhaps even study statistics or something, and you're a product manager that is really, really good with administering user interviews and collecting user research, and sort of making really smart business decisions based on what you sort of find. So and then sorry, just before I move on, even if you study something in the arts and social science that you might think might be completely unrelated to anything that's related to product management, remember that products exist in nearly sort of every area that you can think of. There's products for literally everything, and sometimes there are subject matter experts required to be product managers because you just have an intimate understanding of a certain customer base or a certain job that needs to be done. So rather, instead of looking at sort of what you study, think about things like, has anybody ever told you that you're a good listener, or you're a team player, or that you're an effective communicator? All these little skills are what can set you up to be a successful product manager. Thinking about like how you work with others and how you listen to customer concerns and empathize with them, and then obviously relay that back to the business and your key stakeholders, and how you're going to help the customers is also going to help the business. These are really important skills for a product manager, but obviously you can package those up in any way with your formal education. So with that in mind, what does a day, not really a day, but let's call it a day, in the life of a product manager look like? What does a product manager do? They're responsible for the product discovery, and I'll touch on a few of these different things later, but that's sort of really talking to the users, understanding, the problem that your product is going to solve. Creating a product vision, so then taking all of those different things and saying, cool, this is, what we're going to aim for. Creating and deciding on features. So you might do this exercise with a variety of different stakeholders in the business, but generally a product manager will sort of prioritize those, and then obviously develop a roadmap to say, this is the way in which we're going to, create our product to meet our product vision. They're heavily responsible, or not responsible rather, but involved in the product delivery process. In larger organizations, you might have other people in the business like Scrum Masters in Agile teams that are very mostly responsible for delivery, but a product manager is there to obviously make trade-off decisions, as Sharif mentioned in the video, and obviously wear that product owner hat as well. So I would say that in some businesses, like Sharif said, the product managers work in a capacity whereby they make the team wear that product owner hat. At Quantium, I would say, like, at least I know in my position, business analysts are considered the people that wear those product owner hats in a Scrum team or in an Agile team, as opposed to the product manager. But that is not the same in every business. And then the last thing here is the continuous product improvement. So obviously, that comes back to something that Sharif said in his video and in his quote that I pulled up, where the product manager defines sort of the vision and the success of the product. So it's not good enough to just have the vision and then deliver on that vision. You obviously have to articulate what success looks like to the business. And perhaps the features that you just created have fallen a little short. So you need to go back and really start this process again. You go back to the product discovery stage and sort of uncover why the feature that you developed didn't work and how you can improve it. And you sort of, as you can see, it continues to sort of follow this cyclical pattern of product discovery through to continuous product improvement. Cool. So that's sort of the first half of this presentation. The second half is going to be a bit of a workshop that I've put together, and there's sort of two caveats to this section. So the first thing that I'm going to call out is that this is intended to be quite interactive. I wanted to sort of come up with something that would be exciting for you guys to sort of follow and participate in, just because product management involves a lot of different moving parts, and a lot of those moving parts are not something that I can talk to you about in great detail. So for example, during the product discovery process, there might be a lot of UX work that's involved in that, and that UX work might be, testing mockups, doing usability testing, and that's not something that I'm an expert on. I'm not going to talk to you about those different things, and you probably had people come in and give you UX talks. And then the other part of that is that you might have parts of the product delivery process that are quite heavily involved in Agile and obviously the ways of working in Agile. And people are paid to, teach you and certify you to be an Agile equipped or Agile knowledge rather. So I'm not going to give you a 45-minute rundown on how Agile works and all the different things there, because one, again, it's not my area of expertise, and obviously people are paid to do that job. So what I intended to do with this was to give you a really high-level overview of what it looks like to go from a product's inception and the product vision to product delivery. So let's kick it off, and then I'll let you know when I sort of want to get your interaction and help with some of these different steps, and hopefully it should be a fun exercise, and then we'll go from there, and hopefully everybody finds it fun. So the first thing that we would do is sort of define a problem statement, or perhaps multiple problem statements that guide the vision of our product. So we don't really have the means, I guess, to do this all the time. We don't have a bunch of customers that we can interview right now, and we'd be here for a long time. But let's go through what it might look like to actually come up with a problem statement. And problem statement is something that a lot of people aren't really good at describing. Like if someone was to ask you, you have a great product idea, and you someone asks you, okay, cool, like what's the point of your product? What problem are you solving? Sometimes people struggle with that. So this is a really quick method called the 5W2H method, and it helps you develop a problem statement. So it involves 7 questions, and the first of which is what is the problem that needs to be solved? So let's take an example of a call center. So that call center might have a problem where the assessment call, so the first call that assesses, it might be that you're applying for some sort of loan or whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. But that assessment call is too complex. It's time consuming and administratively heavy. So it results in a diminished experience for users, and then, or clients rather, and then also the person performing the work or the call. And then obviously it's important to consider why that's a problem. So it really highlights the pain here. So what this might mean is that it's a problem because it results in a really long call, clients having to repeat their story through multiple different calls as they move through the queue. And it might mean that the assessment worker is annoyed by the process or something. So it's just really uncovering why the problem is there. And not just, oh, it's a problem, cool, let's solve it. So then the next thing that you want to ask is where the problem is observed. So that's like the location of product. So for example, in this assessment call example, it would be that it's observed in every single call. Like no matter who calls us, we have to do this assessment call. So it happens every time, but there might be some variability in like the experience of the assessment worker and other factors that contribute to the handling of calls. The next question you want to ask is who's impacted. So it's not always just one person impacted, not always just the person on the other end, but it could affect them obviously, and most likely does, but it could affect people waiting in the queue because your calls are taking longer. There's 30 people waiting, they're all affected. Clients' families could be affected if this is a call for like some sort of payment. Like imagine, you're a Centrelink assessment call worker right now during, all these job seeker and job keeper calls, for example. So people's families and lives could be impacted, and then even like organizations and employers and communities being served could be affected depending on where this call center is and what purpose it's serving. So then the 5th question of the W's is when was the problem first observed? So this could be a latent problem that has existed for ages, and it's just that recent changes have like exacerbated the problem, and now it's even worse. So for example, if you're taking the Centrelink example right now, perhaps there's more requirements that you need to fulfill, and so the assessment call is now taking a lot longer due to the effects of COVID, rather than what it used to be. Because even though the problems existed for a while and the assessment call was taking a while, now it's even worse. But at the same time, it could be a problem that has just sprung up now because, I don't know, your Cisco, whatever tool that you're using to answer calls has had an update and you hate the update and there's something wrong with it. So question 6 is how is the problem observed? So this is really around the symptoms of sort of the problem. So is observed in a variety of different ways. So it could be the variation in call handling times, the wait times in the telephone queue, call abandon rates, all that sort of stuff. So you would see this problem observed in a variety of different ways. And the last question you'd ask is how often is the problem observed? So for example, that could be that it's a daily operational occurrence. It could be that it happens weekly. It's a pretty simple one, but then you could obviously see some sort of trend with that as well, that it's over time increasing in severity and stress on the system because, you know, every time there's more people waiting in the queue causing problems. So hopefully that gives you a pretty good idea of what coming up with a problem statement looks like. We won't have the opportunity to come up with a problem statement right now, but it's a pretty good way of sort of starting to even think about maybe some of the product ideas you have yourselves and being able to do your own research. So after this process, so one thing that I will call out is I've got both these things here, which is sort of one, coming up with a problem statement, and then two, now starting to identify your customer needs. You could do those things in reverse. You could discover your customer needs first and then really start to think about your problem statement. But generally, you'd probably have a pretty good idea, or if you're a product manager in a business in the future, you're probably going to be working on an existing product. So you'll likely have a problem statement to develop rather than going in just without any knowledge, because technically you could start to talk to users without any knowledge of a product in mind, and then sort of come up with a problem, right? But right now what we would do is complete the process of deeply understanding our customers. We'd employ a framework such as the jobs to be done theory to identify our customers' needs and which of those needs are unmet. So it allows us to understand whether the product is actually required or not, and if it's solving valuable problems that customers would actually pay money to solve. So a quote from Anthony Ulrich, who wrote the Jobs to be Done book, is saying that it's a framework for defining, categorizing, capturing, and organizing all of your customers' needs. And the reason why it's important is because it's not just one customer, and I'll show you what I mean. So who are your customers? So one of your customers is the job executor. So that's the person who uses the product to get the core functional job done. You'd have another group of customers which are called the product lifecycle support team. So it consists of a varying group of people who support the product throughout its lifecycle. So it includes people who install, transport, repair, maintain, upgrade, or dispose of the product. So while all of those things sound like quite physical tasks, and for a physical product, it also applies in the world of software, because you might sell an enterprise product and that enterprise product needs to be managed by perhaps another business's IT team. So that IT team would be the lifecycle support team, even though they might not be the job executors. And then the buyer. So this is the person responsible for making the financial purchase decision. So yeah, believe it or not, people buying your product might not necessarily be the people using it. So let me give you a quick example. If you were a toothbrush manufacturer, your customer would be the job executor, the product lifecycle support team, and the buyer, which is the case for most B2C businesses. If you're a business to customer business, you will sell your product to someone and that person will fulfill all these roles. Quite simple. If you're a B2B business, so business to business, your job executor, your product lifecycle support team, and the buyer could be very different people. So if we took the example of, let's say, a business that sells some surgical equipment, the job executor could be perhaps, let's say, the surgeon. The product lifecycle support team would consist of perhaps the nurses, the anaesthetists, the hygienist, assisting doctors during surgery, all these people that sort of install, repair, maintain all those tools would be that product lifecycle support team. And the buyer is likely someone that works in the hospital's procurement team or in hospital administration or something. So they might make decisions on, oh, cool, we need to buy like this new set of tools because they're better, or there's a new version of them, or the other ones have worn out, or whatever it is. But that person is, in that case, likely never going to be the job executor. Cool. So what I want to do here, and this is where I'm going to require a bit of input from you guys. So again, feel free to write in chat or even just talk out to me, because that might be a little easier for this, but I'm going to jump out of the presentation and just into PowerPoint, and we're going to actually edit this in real time. But after we have all our user research, so let's imagine that we just came up with our problem statement, we had used the jobs to be done framework to come up with our customer needs and what gaps there are, guided by our product vision. At this point, we'd want to start thinking about what features we want to build out to solve our customer problems. So again, I'll give you a quick sort of note here. This process in and of itself would obviously have a lot of different steps. And so what I'm doing is giving you this bird's eye view of it. But remember that even this process would require maybe a lot of collaboration with the UX team, where the UX team would be responsible for, you know, providing with low fidelity and high fidelity mockups and doing usability testing. For those of you that may not know what low fidelity, high fidelity mockups are, a low fidelity mockup just means it's of low quality. It might be a hand-drawn sketch by me, whereas a high fidelity mockup would likely be someone in a UX team that uses a tool like Figma or Sketch to come up with a building a working prototype that a user can sort of interact with, and you can see, you know, how they interact with your solution. So obviously we won't go into detail about all of that sort of stuff, but what I do want to do, if I can escape my presentation really quickly, why can't I get out of my presentation? I can't go back. Aha. All right, cool. Imagine you didn't see any of that. So could I get some of you, or let me get the first person or someone to just shout out a product idea. So you don't need to give me your product ideas. I'm not going to steal your thoughts. But if you, if someone can make a suggestion on what product we can look at. So you could say Facebook, you could say Zoom, it doesn't matter. Like, just let's think of any product and let's start to build a feature list for that. Can anybody make a suggestion on what product we could do this for? Facebook? Tinder, nice. We could do Tinder. That might perhaps be a funny one. Does anybody have any other thoughts? Uber's a good one. Canva? All right, what? +1 to Tinder. All right, let's do Tinder because I think it's actually quite simple comparatively to the others. We could be here forever to go through all the features of Facebook. That would take us a million years, and they probably have like 600 product managers. That's an exaggeration, but probably a lot. So, if I could get you guys to now think about what are the different things that you would use Tinder for. So let's call Tinder an application where you can sort of, it's a dating application, right? And you want to meet people that obviously you want to hook up with or date or whatever you're going to do with them. What are some of the features that that would be required to sort of deliver that product? So I'll kick it off just to get it going. So what we would need is, let's say, let me try bullet this. We would need a profile page where you can input all your different details about yourself. You would need a way to, so you need a matching algorithm. Yep. So you need some sort of messaging platform. Yep. You need a way to block not interact with people. What else would we need to make this product a success? Location identification. Yeah, that could, yeah, so what we could say is like, I don't know, perhaps some sort of geotagging, see where you are in relation to other people. Authentication and privacy measures. Yep. So we could say privacy measures. So those privacy measures could be protecting your personal information and not giving information to other people. Yep. So a login page. Yep. So premium offers would each of the different premium offers would be their own, I guess, feature. So let's say, obviously we need a way to so like people, don't like people. So that's like swiping. And someone said, Netflix and chill add-on. No, add-on cannot be included in this version. That can be for later. Cool. So let's just say this is the most important features that we are gonna. So I'm gonna copy this because we'll use this for later. And let me go back into presentation mode. Cool. Sweet. So what we need to do now is we've got a list of features, but what do we do with this list of features? So we've got this our product idea, and we know all these different features are required because they solve our customers' problems, like of meeting people and obviously protecting their privacy. We need to develop something called MVP. So what do you guys think MVP stands for? Sweet. Thank you, Jason. It is the minimum viable product. So what does the minimum viable product mean? The minimum viable product is a few different things. One, minimum stands for it's the most rudimentary, bare bones foundation of the solution possible. Viable means that it's sufficient enough for your early adopters, so the people that are, passionate fans of your product and, you're solving their problem, really, and it's a very important problem for them. So they're going to jump on as quickly as they can. And then obviously it's something tangible customers can touch and feel. So we're not going to create some sort of matching algorithm on our end and tell them, hey, this might be a good person for you to meet up with. They can't use that product. We're just, it's as if we're doing some sort of consulting work for them. So that's not going to be good. So how you can think of the minimum viable product is if you took a pyramid of a product being functional, reliable, usable, having a good user experience and a good design, you wouldn't want to build something that's as functional as possible because you're not really touching any of the other components, because your early adopters aren't going to use a really functional tool, but the design is crap. It's barely stable, like it crashes every time they open it or whatever it is. So you wouldn't want that. Instead, what you'd do is build a little bit of each part of the pyramid. So you'd start with some sort of design that you think is good, and you'd obviously do the initial version of it and have the vision to continue to build on that. But obviously you'll start with like the most bare bones version of that as you can. And you want to make sure that it's at least usable and reliable so that your early adopters can get in there, use it, get feedback from them, and obviously as functional as possible. So what that means is that you might not have, all your most important features there, but you'll have the features that you consider to be the most important to deliver your product to start with. So if I can exit my presentation again, perfect, that worked this time, and pasted this here. If we were to prioritize these features for MVP, how would we adjust this list of features? So I'm going to rely on you guys again here to contribute. What would you guys consider to be the most important thing that we need to develop here as a feature for our product? The profile page? Yeah. So probably the profile page and the matching algorithm, right? So let's say that let's say the matching algorithm is probably the most important thing. Yeah, the login page, you're right. We're going to need the login page. So people can actually sign in. That's probably not a large piece of work, but definitely an important one. But yeah, the matching algorithm might be something that we would need to develop upfront right at the start, because without the matching algorithm, how the hell are we going to actually, give people recommendations on, who they might be interested in? So I see profile page is another one that people are putting in. So yeah, we will need the profile page so people can put their details, and then we will need a messaging platform so those people can talk with each other. Cool. Let's say that the login page actually would probably come in, like, let's say maybe here, because remember, we can make the login page as bare bones as possible, right? Like we can, like, maybe it might not have some sort of secure login or something. Like we can do whatever it is just to spin it up and make sure that people can actually get into the product. What about some of these other things, like blocking and not interacting with people versus liking and not liking people? What do you guys think? Do you think that we would probably need to prioritize people that can, so they can say, yeah, I'm interested in this person, I'm not interested in this person? I would probably put that there. So privacy measures are probably important. So let's put that above this here. So how does this look? Does this look like something that would be a pretty good example of like how we'd sort of start to put together a product like Tinder? So we'd want to upfront create our matching algorithm, create a profile page for people to put in some basic details about themselves. And remember that even all these different things might have their own MVP version of their own feature. So a profile page, we might have a vision to make this awesome profile page with all this different information, but to really get it out there, we might just give them name, gender, date of birth, and a bit they can write about themselves and a picture. And then in the future, maybe we can give them 10 pictures or whatever it is. So, and then blocking and not interacting with people is obviously an important feature, but remember that blocking and not interacting with people doesn't necessarily stop us from delivering the product in its first instance so that our early adopters can use it. Yes, they might not be comfortable with someone continuing to persist and message them, but at the same time, they can just ignore their messages and nothing will really come of that. So obviously it's not a great solution, but it's a solution at least to get your product to market. And remember that generally these are all, we've obviously listed all the very important features here. So generally, if Tinder was building out their product, they'd probably include all of this in MVP. But obviously we're just using this as an example. So what I wanted to do now was sort of actually show you what it's like to just put together a quick roadmap. So from here, we have these list of features and we want to create Tinder in 6 months. So we've said that the most important thing is our matching algorithm. So what we want to do is we want to do the matching algo. And we think that's going to take, and the other thing with road mapping is that this is obviously very dependent on things like resourcing and cost and any commercial constraints that you have. So if you had 50 engineers, it would be very different to having 3. But let's just pretend, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. We're not going to worry about how many engineers we have or how much it's going to cost us, or if we have any commercial requirements. We're just going to say that we think that this is going to take 3 months. And let's see if I can make this cell, if I can remember how to use this format shape. And let's make it black. So we think that's going to take 3 months to do the matching algorithm. The profile page, we think that we can do the profile page with another one of our engineers at the same time, but we want to probably do the matching algorithm by itself. We want to use all our engineers for the first 2 months to do the bulk of the work. And then towards the end of the work, we want to do the profile page and take one of our engineers off it. So let's put the profile page there. The messaging platform, So the messaging platform, we might say we think that will take 2 months, and we think we can do it at the same time that we're doing the profile page and the tail end of the matching algorithm. So we can put one of our engineers on that. I probably could be doing this much more efficiently, but whatever. The login page and liking and not liking people. So we will probably say that the login page can happen really easily in this month here, because it's we're going to do the most basic job that we can do to make it work. And then liking is going to take us 2 months, or let's say it's going to take us 1 month here as well, because we just need to come up with a system like swiping and not swiping, and we think that's pretty simple. And then what we might do is we might have our, right at the end here, our privacy, and we think that's really important. So we're going to spend the last 2 months of our release making sure that our privacy is, up to scratch for release, because we don't want anybody's personal information getting compromised, especially if we're not introducing like blocking or whatever. So as you can see, this is a really quick sort of example of what it looks like to put together a roadmap. So you would have your prioritized list of features that align with what you are going to do for MVP, and then you would put that in a roadmap where you can sort of track your dependencies. So dependencies mean something that's dependent on another thing finishing, and also keeping track of when you're going to do things or not. So road mapping is a really, really simple exercise. I say simple like it's easy, but it's actually once you're doing the real thing is quite difficult, because like I said, you have to consider all those other real world things like resourcing and cost to the business. So they're all really important things to consider. We just put something really crude and basic together, but you sort of get the point. Cool, so let's go back into the presentation here. So I'm just, how much time do I have left? About 5 minutes, I think, maybe a bit more. Someone let me know if I'm going over time, and then I can sort of cut back. But what I wanted to show you here was a quick example of, once we've got our roadmap, so product managers sort of done their job of getting all the user research, getting the customer needs, developing the list of features that are going to solve those needs, and then prioritizing them into a roadmap. Now it's time to actually get into the sort of delivery process and use a tool like Jira, for example. So this is actually a real Jira board that I took from work. Sorry, I couldn't jump into Jira to show you what it looks like and how it works. Some of you might be familiar with it already, but as you can see, there's a variety of different things that I've sort of masked here. But these numbers up here are ticket numbers. These would be the ticket names here, as I've labeled. These colored things underneath would be epics that the tickets are related to. So an epic is an agile term that represents a body of work that can be broken down into multiple specific tasks or user stories. You've probably heard about user stories before, which is essentially a way to describe a user problem to a technical team so they can sort of deliver a solution. Is this the plan for engineers to do? Do you mind? I'll answer that question later, but do you mind if you just afterwards in the Q&A, perhaps just whether you're referring to this here or whether you're referring to the road mapping? That would be awesome. And then story point is, so these numbers that you see here, 13, 5, 1. So story points are sort of the relative size and complexity of a piece of work. So what these numbers do is represent the effort required for someone to complete the work. So generally, sometimes teams link story points to periods of time. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to use a story point as a sort of representation of relative size and complexity. So if something's a 5 and you make something a 13, then you can sort of compare those pieces of work against each other. It's not saying that it's 5 days or 13 days. If you time box it like that, generally teams run into problems, because generally you can't commit to those time periods, because you'll find that things can go wrong during the development process. So what I want to do is, if I can leave the presentation one more time. Cool. And then I will try and see if I can do a new share of Trello. I created a Trello board. Cool. I think you guys should be able to see Trello now. I've made it DigiSoc purple, or as close to it as I could. But what I wanted to show you was what it might look like to actually develop something along the lines of what a sprint might look like in Jira. So for example, we might call this our epics. Oh, oops, add list. And then we'll add some cards here. So for example, we could make this, what did we say? We said this was matching algorithm. What else do we have? We had the, what was the next most important thing? It was the profile page, login page, liking. I don't think it was privacy. Cool. And then what we could do perhaps is we could take this and we could give this, let's say I could attach a label here, and we could make it green, and we could make this yellow. You get the idea, right? I could go through and create all those different colors. Also remember, Trello is free to use. That's why I'm using this. Obviously in Jira, it'd be a lot more advanced. This is just a very rudimentary example so you guys can see what it might look like. But then, for example, let's say we would have in here to do, we would have in progress, we would have blocked. Blocked just means that you picked up something to do, or maybe you haven't even picked it up yet, but you've realized you can't do it yet because maybe there's a bug or something else needs to be completed first or something like that. So you put that in blocked so the team's aware of it, and then it'll be a product manager or maybe even probably a scrum master's job in an agile team to sort of help unblock the team. We might have in review. So for those of you studying engineering, you would do something, you'd make a pull request for someone to review your, I think that's just maybe a Bitbucket term, I'm not sure, but it is generally representative of someone reviewing your work or peer review. Then you might have in test. So those of you that are interested in QA, you'd be heavily involved in this sort of QA being quality assurance. You'd be testing it to make sure that it's ready to be released, and then you'd have done, essentially that it's gone through all the different stages of this. And then effectively what we'll do is under each of these different epics that we have here, so we'd have our matching algorithm epic, we would have under that a variety of different cards that we would create. So I'm not going to do a matching algorithm because it sounds super complex and I have no idea how I would do that. But if we took profile page, for example, we might have a ticket that will be, let's say, the profile picture. We would have a ticket to do the user details. So that could be their first name, last name, whatever. We could have another one that means, I don't know what else that would put in a profile page, whatever. That's enough, I guess. And then what we'll do is within that, you would have, for example, this one here is user details, would have like an acceptance criteria. So an acceptance criteria is generally what's something when an engineer looks at it, they know what they need to do to deliver on this task. So you need to make it very clear that at the end of this ticket being complete, the ticket or needs to have fulfilled X, Y, and Z. And it's also very important because your QA team will look at this too. They'll go, okay, cool. How do I test this to make sure that it does this? So for example, what did I wrote here? This was user details. So in the AEC, we would say user detail, user should be able to input their first and last name. User should be able to optionally include email and phone number, whatever it is. And as you can see that, like, I've changed like the way I've written that. So user should be able to optionally include email and phone number means that that's a piece of the user details that aren't going to be required as like an, red asterisk for someone to sort of complete that. So these are all things that you need to be very clear about when you're, writing this sort of stuff for your engineers and for your QA. We might have another one, which is user should be able to write a quick description of themselves using 500 words or less. So that obviously means that the engineer is going to have to know that they need to do that and implement it with a word limit, for example. This is all very simple, but I could attach a label here as well. That's yellow to know that we have linked it to this epic here. And then, for example, if this was Jira, you would have a story point estimate. So an engineer might come back and tell you, yep, we think this is a relatively easy piece of work. We'll make it 3 story points. And obviously, as you continue to do this, you would move it through these stages, hopefully not into blocked, but just from in to do to all the way to done. Cool. So let me reshare my presentation. Cool. Sweet. So that was a pretty high level view, and hopefully I didn't move through that too quickly and everybody sort of managed to get an idea of that and how that might work. So obviously we didn't do that first stage of really talking to our users and uncovering their needs and building the right product for them. But using the example that was provided of Tinder, we sort of came up with a list of features that we thought would be important to deliver that product, what it meant to prioritize it in terms of creating something that's the most minimum viable product and getting it into market, and then obviously a little bit about how to actually what the road mapping exercise looks like without all the complexity, and then what it looks like to actually play around with that in Trello or Jira if you actually have the more enterprise tools. So just lastly, wanted to share with you some stuff that I thought might be good to read if you're interested in product management. So I spoke about the Jobs to be Done book by Anthony Ulrich, which is great if you want to learn about how to really understand those customer needs and sort of turn it into a bit of a science, and how you can sort of come up with a reproducible way of doing that. And then something that we sort of treat as, I guess, the product management Bible at Quantium is the book Inspired by Marty Kagan. And as you can see, it's all about how to create tech products customers love. So this is an awesome book. I'd recommend reading it if you're really interested in product management. Marty Kagan should definitely tip you over the edge and make you decide, yep, that's what I want to do. Cool. So I had a few questions that were sort of given to me from, I think it was Lucy. So I'm going to go through some of those questions, and then I think we'll have some time to do some Q&A afterwards at the end. So does Quantium offer pre-penultimate roles? So the answer to that is Quantium does offer internships, but there is obviously, with the current situation, internships aren't currently on because there's going to be a variety of different issues that would make that possible. Obviously, everybody's really working from home and sort of setting things up so that someone could, adequately, come into the intern role would be quite difficult. So instead, Quantium has created something inside Sherpa, which would give you sort of, if you're interested in being an analyst, I think it is, I'm not entirely sure because I haven't completely looked into it, but if you're sort of interested in being an analyst, it would sort of show you what you would be doing day to day at Quantium and the sort of real work challenges that you'd be involved in. Next question is, how do you stand out to recruiters in an industry such as Quantium? So it's really making sure that you can show the recruitment team that you're passionate about Quantium, you do your research, you understand what Quantium does, everything's on the website. Quantium posts a lot of different videos on LinkedIn, and you can really get a feel for all the different industries that we play in, all the different verticals that we're in, and the different products and services that we have there. And then sort of really articulating how or why you think you could sort of be a piece to the puzzle at Quantium. Like what sort of skills do you have that could really make a difference? Obviously, you don't need to be the next whatever it is, Einstein, but you can obviously you can really sell yourself is what I'm trying to get at. Like you could communicate that you have some of those skills that you think align with some of the things that Quantium are working on, and you think that those things go together quite nicely. What experience do you need to be an employee at Quantium? I'm imagining this is a question in reference to the graduate program, and the answer to that is none. You just need to have good grades and just an appetite for learning and passion for sort of coming to Quantium and wanting to work there. So yeah, no experience needed. Obviously, if you're applying for a non-graduate position, there will be some experience requirements, and they're all listed in the job descriptions. Do you have any opportunities in design? If not, would you consider opening a design stream or potentially other streams? Again, I think, I imagine this question is in relation to graduate program. At the moment, no. In terms of if we're considering it or not, I'm not sure because I'm obviously not part of the people and culture team and the graduate academy team there, but there's definitely opportunities in design if you have obviously experience. We have a UX team, but obviously if you're looking for a graduate role in design, not at the moment, no. And then how would you describe an efficient and highly performing member in Quantium? So I thought this was a great question. I thought I wanted to just give a quick answer to it. And essentially, I feel like a efficient and highly performing member, and everybody will give you a different answer for this, but I think it's just making sure that you're always busy. And if you're not busy, then finding a way to be busy. So essentially just really working hard and delivering good results. And in saying that, Quantium is like, sometimes you can be intimidated by how smart some of the people that you work with are. And it's a lot of the time even about like just learning from them and building your own sort of repository of knowledge and experience to then become even more high performing yourself. And so if you can sort of learn from those people around you, and even when you sort of go big and make mistakes, that you learn from those mistakes and continue to sort of perform better next time. So I think Quantium is definitely a place where mistakes are encouraged, and that if you don't make mistakes, well, that's impossible because nobody doesn't make mistakes, but as long as you learn from them is obviously really, really important. So I think that's it. Sorry. Yeah, so before we go into Q&A, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, email me, or if you want to know my Steam, Battle.net, or Epix games, feel free to ask me either in email or just send me a LinkedIn message. I am always down to play games, especially now that I can't do anything other than stay home and play video games, so and do my job, of course. So there was a few chats that I think that came up. Let me just see what they are. Cool. So let's jump into Q&A, and then I can obviously answer some of these questions that I see here from Shania and Jason as well. So yeah, I guess someone meant to take over for me once I was done with the presentation.
Yep, thanks for that super interesting workshop, Luka. I definitely learned a lot. Love the Tinder example. So I'm sure the audience has a lot of questions for you, so I'll just give the floor to them right now.
Yeah, what I might do is I saw there's a couple of questions just in the chat. And then
couple of questions from
maybe I can answer those and then give the floor to other people that haven't asked anything. Is this a plan for engineers to do? Shania, if you want to follow that up, or you can unmute yourself and ask. It was for the road mapping. Okay, so road mapping is a plan that the product manager would generally do. So the product manager would work with either a delivery manager, which is also very similar to a scrum master in an agile team, and they'd sort of be the ones responsible for putting together a roadmap. And the reason why it's not an engineering plan is because generally you would have some sort of like commercial lens to that roadmap. Obviously, the product manager is the one who decides on the prioritization of features, and based on the prioritization of features, you would sort of develop that roadmap. So then the engineers would buy in and say, oh, actually, this is going to take a lot longer than we initially thought or anticipated, or actually this piece of work is blocking this piece of work. So then a product manager will have to go and amend the roadmap, if that makes sense. So it's not that engineering doesn't have buy-in. Generally, you'd probably have a lead engineer that is involved in the road mapping process, but it would be the product managers, they would be the owner of it and the person that's accountable for sort of maintaining it and keeping it up to date. Jason, how specific are each tasks? How do we ensure that tasks within each profile picture is exhaustive? Yeah, so that's a good question. So obviously I didn't dive into that because this is really a bird's eye sort of view of what it's like to go from product vision to product delivery. But yes, you would need to make it quite exhaustive. So but at the same time, it really depends on the team, the sort of team that you work in. Some engineers prefer like really, really robust and detailed acceptance criteria, whereas others sort of sometimes like to prefer that you rely on them a bit more to make sort of some of those decisions. But you would probably want to be pretty exhaustive. So for example, you would want to even go down to the detail of clicking on, like, for example, if someone was to click the profile picture and you would say, okay, so on the profile picture, we need to allow them to upload one picture, but we also need to allow them to update the picture. So then there needs to be an icon there that when you click that icon, this modal pops up, and in that modal, you can see your picture that is already there. And then you might have 1, 2, or 3 options or whatever. And then you would need to sort of map out all of those interactions so that an engineer working against that and then someone testing it can sort of go, okay, cool, I know exactly what needs to happen after everything that I click, and then a tester can go through and test each one of those different things. Hopefully that made sense. From Lehan, sorry if I'm not pronouncing names properly. Are there any opportunities at Quantium to work in PM for the intern grad programs? So at the moment, no. Again, I'm not entirely sure on what the sort of future looks like there, but I can tell you that if you do intern at Quantium in a variety of different capacities, whether it's like in engineering or analytics, that you work, and that's the same with the grad program too, engineering and analytics, you work quite closely with the product teams and or either like I can't remember exactly how the grad program works or what you'll be assigned to as an intern. But if you are assigned to a product team or as a grad program, you have a rotation in a product team, then you'll obviously work quite closely with a product manager and the product team. So you can sort of over time sort of build your, especially as a grad and as you work through that process. And then as you get out of your graduate program, you can obviously show that you have an interest in product management and sort of try to work as close with that person as possible if you have found yourself a mentor or you've spoken to your manager and told them that you're obviously particularly interested in that. What is the difference between a product manager and a product owner? That's something that Jason asked. And yeah, that's a great question. It's something that Sharif touched on the video that I showed earlier, but if you missed it, it was a tricky one to probably pick up. Essentially, the difference is that a product manager owns sort of the vision of a product and is responsible for sort of aligning what the business need or business outcome is with the product that you're delivering. So you're responsible for making trade-off decisions between user experience, technical feasibility, business outcomes, all that sort of stuff, and sort of you're really guiding that product vision. Whereas a product owner And a lot of, you might go on LinkedIn right now, you might go on any platform and then search product owner roles, and you'll see a bunch of different places that have product owner roles, and that's what they're called. But what the product owner actually means is that you're play a particular role in a product team. So in an agile team or a scrum team, someone would be a product owner. That might not necessarily be a product manager. The product owner is just the person who day to day converts some of those higher level requirements that a product manager has. So for example, like the profile page, into some of those user stories that we spoke about. So they would work with engineering on a day-to-day basis to make sure that tickets and stories are sort of up to date, and the backlog is refined. So the backlog just refers to, for those that don't know that term, is the sort of body of work that is coming up for engineers in the future. Hopefully that answered that. And Daniel asked that product managers come from a variety of majors, but do you think there is generally a common major within most product managers? Good question. I'm not sure. At Quantium, I work with a bunch of, like, one product manager did psychology as well, and then he became an analyst and then a product manager. Another one of the product managers in the team used to be two of them actually used to be consultants, so they were came from a consulting background. So I would say that I haven't seen like a generally common major amongst product managers, but like, for example, as I was sort of touching on, if you went to a business and there was a lot of technical product managers, then you would find that all those technical product managers likely come from a sort of computer science or software engineering background, but that's not always the case. What is a lower role than a product manager but still in the product management field? From Shania. That's a good question. That's a tough one, because perhaps there's associate product managers, which would sort of be like the Atlassian graduate program. But I would say more than anything, product management is one of those things where if you're part of a product team, that's where you can sort of start to find your way into that product manager role if you sort of take on those responsibilities in your own team. So I saw that Ben sent a question that I moved from a customer experience specialist to your current PM role. I might tie that in with your question, Shania. So for example, I went from customer experience and wanted to go into product management. And what I really did was I worked really hard to be sort of competent and successful at my role as a customer experience specialist, and sort of really made it clear to my manager that I had an interest in the product teams and being a product manager, and that's sort of where I wanted my career to go. And sort of taking the bull by its horns and showing, you know, I can do this job because I have XYZ qualities. I've delivered this in the past year. I have these skills. I'm learning from product managers. I'm always interacting with them. Those sorts of things, no matter what role you're in, if you're in a product team or in a team that supports a product team or wherever you are in the business, I think you can do those little things to really take control of your career. And I feel like that's more of a motivational speaking coming out of me there, but you could definitely go to like some motivational talk or someone that can tell you about how to really guide your career and push your career. And I think that's where it would fall in more than anything. Like getting into product management sometimes can be a slow burn because it does sometimes require a few years in the job, but also Quantium happened to be in a position where there was an opportunity to bring in some sort of junior product management capability. And I sort of fell into that, luckily enough. Maliha, what is the general experience required to start in an entry-level product manager role? So I know from the associate product manager program at Atlassian that they'd look for not really any product experience, but that you can sort of think with a product mindset and sort of I'd say that there's probably no experience really required to sort of get into that sort of role. But in terms of like what's on the market right now, if you went on LinkedIn and went product manager and saw was on the table, I would say that they probably ask for like 3 to 4 years of experience in product management. So like even me being like, you know, fairly young product manager, if I look at all these jobs, like, you know, I can't even apply for them really. So it's hard to say because like every business wants a product manager that is really experienced and really good at what they do. And I think the best way to find yourself falling into product management is definitely over time. And in a position that's related to product management in a way, whether you're part of a product team or something, but then you can really sort of make a case for why you think you'd be a great product manager. So for example, at Quantium, if you're an analyst and you know you're working on an analytics part of a product, but then you can show that you have, you know, a really switched on mind for some new solutions and some things to prioritize and whatnot, then you might find yourself over time falling into that product management role. Jason, again, do you think product manager is a role that will remain in the future? I think it's going to be probably even more important. Like, think about how, like, we've obviously done this massive social experiment in recent times that pretty much indicates that people will pay for convenience. You know, we used to pirate, not like, I don't mean people in this chat, maybe people in this chat, but we used to pirate all sorts of different content online, and now we've got products like Netflix and Stan and Disney Plus and whatnot, and people just pay for it because it's so much easier. And so now that products are starting to sort of really solve all these different problems, and think about all the problems that are still yet to be solved by software solutions or hardware solutions. So I think product management is going to continue to become even more important as we start to rely on products even more to sort of solve our some of our most basic problems. David, what's the career progression like as a PM? That's a good question. It's an interesting one because I'm not entirely sure. I would say that career progression of product manager would probably be something along the lines of the magnitude of the decisions that you make become greater. So what I mean by that is, as a fairly junior product manager, so I'd say sort of like where I'm at in my career, you sort of make some decisions for a product that probably aren't going to necessarily be the most impactful to a business. You might make small decisions on things like changing the look of a widget and working with engineers to make sure that you can document that and deliver that. It might be other small changes to a product, or it might just be working with your technical teams to make sure that you spec out requirements properly, and you write user stories and all that sort of stuff. So the magnitude of the decisions that you make for the product that you're working on are probably not particularly impactful. But then as you get more senior as a product manager, obviously your title changes. You might go from associate product manager to a product manager to a senior product manager to a principal product manager, and then like a head or director of product, or even a chief product officer in some cases, like at massive businesses that have CPOs. But obviously, as you can see, like sort of the decisions that you make like obviously increase in size. So as a chief product officer, you would be like really responsible for like the vision and strategy of your entire business. Like you would be like across every single product that your business has, and what the, you know, and I'm not talking like 6 to 12 month vision. I'm talking like a 3 to 5 year vision, or even 5 to 10 year vision for the product. And like as an associate, you might do something that has a 6-week time frame. Then you obviously that starts to get bigger. Hopefully that makes sense. That's what I would say progression looks like. It's a bit of a weird one. And what has been your favorite product that you've worked on? I'd say the product that I'm working on, actually, maybe not right now. I'd probably say the product that I'm most excited that I've worked on is something that I was working on a few months ago. Recently, just rolled off it. I can't tell you too much about it, but it's a artificial intelligence product that we have here at Quantium based on our retail data that sort of speeds up time to insight for our users. So rather than our users digging through and finding like all sorts of important information they need to in our data. So running the same reports weekly and sort of trying to uncover the same answers, we've sort of come up with a something that finds out what's important and what's important to them, and then surfacing that to them weekly, as opposed to having to make them run reports and look for the data themselves. So that was quite exciting to work on. What is my BattleNet ID? I can't remember because I can never remember the hashtag and the numbers, but if you connect with me on LinkedIn and send me the message, I'll find it for you. That looks like most of the questions there. Do I play League? No, I don't play MOBAs, but if you're willing to teach me, I'll play.
All right, thanks for the great questions from the audience, and those are some great answers, Luka. We have one last question from DigiSoc. What's your favorite anime?
Oh, my favorite anime. Oh, okay, good question. Am I going to get judged depending on what I say? I would say probably Code Geass is probably my favorite, just because, yeah, it's awesome, and I love Lelouch as a character. But right now, what I'm watching, my favorite would be probably MHA, even though it's not on right now, but that's definitely what I'm keen for coming up next.
All right, thanks. So that concludes our event today. I'd like to thank you on behalf of DigiSoc and the audience for sharing your amazing experiences in conducting the workshop. If I could quickly ask everyone to turn their video on so we can take a quick picture of our event for LinkedIn.
What I'll actually do as well, just that now that you reminded me of the workshop and everything, I'll download a local copy of it and maybe email it to you. And if you want, you can share it with everybody that was here. So, and I'll put a link to the Trello board that should stay up and people can sort of play around in there as well.
Okay, yeah. And we've also recorded this event today. So if anyone wants to watch over this again, that's completely possible. I'll just wait a few more seconds for more people to turn their videos on. Okay, so I'll just take it in a few seconds. Okay, I'll just take a few. All right.
I'm seeing some of those cool backgrounds.
So just a quick reminder for everyone that's participated, if you could fill out the art form. Yep, Ruz just pop that in the chat again. And do you have any final words for our audience with Luka?
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to say thanks for having me here to chat with you guys. Obviously, product management is a bit of an elusive one. It's not everybody's super clear on it. So I hope you guys learnt a little bit about it from my humble learnings and understanding of it. But yeah, I'd want to say if you are interested in product management, feel free to connect with me. I'll impart any wisdom that I have, but also remember that no matter what you're doing right now, you can be a successful product manager. You just really need to sort of set your mind to it. And then obviously, no matter what position that you're in, sort of keep that focus and see how what you're learning in your position can apply to being a successful product manager. So yeah.
All right. So once again, thank you so much for today, Luka. I've definitely learned a lot today, and I'm sure everyone else here has too. And I hope you have a great day.
Awesome. Hopefully you guys do too. Yeah, good luck with the rest of your term. I think it's on now. So yeah, good luck.
Okay, thanks everyone for attending.
Thanks guys. Bye.